No, my lawyer said I can't be Stevie Nicks. I'm just a generic, non-specific look-alike.
Or Ann Mangeson, which, if you're watching Anne, we would love to have you on the
Or if
show.
you know her, or if you know her dog walker's cousin, or
Right.
whatever.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Hook a
Uh,
brothers up.
yes. Uh, welcome to the generic, non-specific Stevie Nicks podcast. I'm your co-host, Randy.
And I'm Anthony, and someone thought I was 20 years younger than I am this week, and I'm going to be saying it everywhere, so I'll say it here too.
I think so. That is definitely breaking news right there. Ant looks 20 years younger than he actually is. And since he's only 39, 20 years
19,
younger than that,
exactly.
I mean,
That's it, yes.
come on, right? So, how you
Randy, what
been?
are we talking about today?
Well, we are going to start our dive into Stevie's Fleetwood Mac catalog. And
Wait, are you talking about those British people and stuff that back
right,
her up once in a while? Okay,
right,
gotcha,
right. Her
gotcha.
her
Okay.
British backing band. Yes, her
Oh,
British.
cool, cool.
Um, so I thought
Please
today
don't,
we would,
please, actually, I was going to say, please don't leave me in comments. Go for it. But
right,
only me, not
exactly.
Randy. Randy's innocent. Randy's
Right. If you have to leave comments about someone looking 20 years younger than they actually are, make sure it's about Anthony, right? Yes. But yes, we're going to start with the White Fleetwood Mac album
Why you
and
gotta
talk.
be white?
Yeah, I know. Racist. Racist. It's actually called Fleetwood Mac, Fleetwood Mac, but
Self-titled, right? Yeah.
yes, it's their self-titled album. It was released in 1976, 1975,
Ah,
sorry,
I thought so. No,
1975.
I'm sorry.
Um,
And
as
this
the
is the
story
first.
goes, and everybody knows this, but in case there are any little Stevie babies out there that are just learning about her career, I love to kind of recap this. Fleetwood Mac had gone through many personnel changes. That's what they were known for, was losing members and getting new members, and the band, of course, is named for the rhythm section of Mick Fleetwood and John McVie, and they were in California. They were listening to, or they were getting ready to record their new album, and they were looking for a studio. And so they went to Sound City, and Keith Olsen met with Mick Fleetwood, and he's like, "Well, play me something that you've done here in the studio." And they played the Buckingham Nicks album, which we will cover on a future episode. Also, Hook a Brother Up. Madison Cunningham and Andrew Bird, we want to have you on the show as well to talk about Buckingham Nicks. So they listened to Buckingham Nicks, specifically the song Frozen Love. And not only does Mick Fleetwood like the sound of the production, but he loves the guitar player who we can't remember what her name was. It was Lindsay somebody. And
Something,
yeah. And
Lexington.
yes. And so right after that, their guitarist quit the band. Bob Welch quit the band. And so they were on the hunt for a guitarist. He called Keith Olsen, said, "What's the name of that guitarist?" And Keith was like, "Lindsay somebody." Said, "Okay, well, we want to invite him in to be in the band." And of course, Lindsay famously said, "Only if you bring my girlfriend, Stevie Nicks." And as legend would have it, they were in the studio when Mick Fleetwood was listening to the album. I don't know if that's actually true,
She was
but
hiding in the basement making bagel mini pizzas. Oh, wait, no, that's Tom Petty or something. Anyway, move on.
right, something. He's always hiding in
But
somebody's
I
basement.
think all of that for the Stevie Babies, it's important also to know that, like you said, the band had changed structure, the Fleetwood Mac band, but this was definitely the band making like maybe the one Fleetwood Mac album before it with Christine was going into the pop era, pop
Yeah,
sound, but this was the one that took it from a bluesy band, historically blues,
right.
over to pop rock with the addition of Stevie and Bucky Linsington.
And Bucky. Yeah, I like that. Let's call him Bucky. Uh,
And then
so you,
it's this time though it shaped the band's identity for how many years is it now? 15
yeah,
years. Yeah.
decades, decades,
Yeah.
decades. So New Year's Eve, 1974, Mick Fleetwood calls Stevie and Lindsay and invites them to join Fleetwood Mac, and they record this album in 3 months. That's something that I think is amazing too, because all of their other albums took like a year, and this one took 3 months to record. So even though there are a lot of good songs on here, I just listened to the entire thing back, from front to back, as back to front, as Stevie would say. We're going to talk about her contributions to the album. What do you want to add before we dive into the song?
I think that's well, the song. It's more than one song.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah,
Let's say Stevie sang 2 tracks on this album. Stevie
yes,
wrote 3 tracks
three
on this.
tracks. Yeah, well, yes,
Lindsay sang 4 tracks on this album. I think Christine sang 5, which of
yeah,
course she'd been in the band already. They were like,
right,
he's a known quantity. Let's lean into this.
yeah,
And she had the lead single, Christine did, and
yeah.
I think it was a top 11 hit. I forget which one was it Say You Love Me first or Over My Head? One or the other.
Over My Head was the first one.
It's the
Was
first
the
one.
first
It was
single.
like
Yeah,
it
yeah,
hit the radio, it made a steam, everyone
yeah.
was happy. And then another song got released, another single.
Huh. Yes. And that other song was, now, interestingly, the single is called Rhiannon parentheses, Will You Ever Win parentheses. And it's never, ever listed that way on any album or single or re-release or anything
Interesting.
ever, ever again.
I wonder, I wish we knew how that happened.
I think that was a record company decision
You think
because,
so? Okay.
yeah, because it nobody knew what Rhiannon
What's a
meant,
Rhiannon?
who it was. Yeah, what's a Rhiannon? Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, so Rhiannon introduced Stevie Nicks to the world. I mean, truly introduced her.
It introduced me to Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
and I think more so than anybody in the band, this, you know, cemented her identity for the rest of her career. You know,
Right.
um, I don't.
And
Uh,
and I love Christine's, 2 contributions on that album, but the one we'll talk about later from
mhm.
Stevie and this one, I believe, are more iconic in the cultural zeitgeist of the last 50 years. This song, maybe Christine had 2 big hits, she had one, but this song is really important to people. They know
Yeah.
this song. Yeah.
Yes. And, Stevie falsely claims that it's been in every set list since she started touring with Fleetwood Mac. That's not true. Uh, but, um, first of all, so the story goes that Stevie picked up a paperback in an airport on her way to Phoenix to visit her family. And the name of the book was Triad by Mary Leader. And there were 2 characters in the book, Rhiannon and Branwen, and they were only loosely associated with the Welsh mythology. But she loved that name so much that she wrote this song, and that's she wrote the song before she was acutely aware of the mythology around it, which is always so interesting because it talks about birds in flight, and of course,
That's a thing.
that's the thing. Rhiannon was goddess of birds and steeds, and she had the 3 birds, and yada yada yada. But it was not only if Stevie was tied to the song was tied to the Welsh mythology. That mythology is now inexorably tied to Stevie Nicks. But all of that, what do you think? I mean, listening to the song as it's recorded for this album, and I can't even remember the last time I listened to it, like in the context of this album, but how does it feel to you?
I remember the song, hearing it the very first time while making my parents' bed, doing chores on a Saturday, and I was assigned to clean the bedrooms. And there was like a transistor radio, and there was a Buffalo nickel too. No, in our bathroom, and it was some AM radio station, and this I'm playing music in the background, and I couldn't make out a word from the distance or whatever, but that the Rhiannon sound. I didn't know
Yeah.
what the word was even when I went in the bathroom. Like, what is this? You know, and so it was just so haunting, and I hate to say that because I don't want to sound like one of those people where, thinks Stevie has to have an owl and a wolf and a next to her at all times and a crescent moon. But it
I think
was,
it's allowed for this song, though. I think
it
it's allowed for
literally,
this song.
yeah, it's almost desired and required, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it immediately like drew my attention and I wanted to hear more. And then I won a copy at school.
What? How
Yeah.
have you never told me this
I
story?
don't know how. Um, our um, our teacher had like a party at his house for all of his students and our families came too. And
Wait a
I
second.
don't remember, and there was a door prize, and I won it, and it was a copy of this album,
Was it the album or just the single?
the album.
Wow. Okay.
And that's where I started to learn, oh, it's a band. Oh, there's
Yeah.
five people. Which one of the girls is Lindsay? You know,
Yeah. Right. Yes. Yeah. That's very fascinating. Again, 30 years on, I'm still learning new things, you
Mr.
know.
Steve K. That was my teacher. Thank you,
And he
Steve.
had a party for his students at his house.
Yes. And his wife's name was Honey. I do not lie.
I love that. I love that. Um, I can't tell you the first time I heard this song, but I know I was pretty young. I think I've mentioned, but I have these really vague memories of Fleetwood Mac in my youth with my parents, you know. But to me, it's written and performed like an incantation. I mean, the chorus is just the name over and over and over again, and I think the structure of the lyrics and the way that they rise and fall,
Exactly.
um,
So well
it's
said. That's what I was trying to say about the way her name was sang, and it drew me out of the bedroom into the bathroom. What are you saying? And I still couldn't make it out. But it
right.
was that rise and fall of the name being sung. It was like, I gotta have this. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Um, and and even before I saw Stevie perform or, saw the chiffon and the hair and the boots, it was just the song itself conjures up that imagery.
Right.
Um,
Because little Stevie babies, we didn't have the internet.
no,
And
we did
the Midnight
not.
Special, it's too late for Randy and I to be up. Randy was
Yes.
probably an infant or something, you know?
Yeah.
And so we didn't see a visual of Steve. I didn't see a visual of Stevie Nicks.
Mm-mm.
And I knew who she was until Rumors.
Right. Yes. Uh, but it just more than, and I may, obviously we're biased,
Tusk.
but I look at, I was listening to this album and out of Christine and Bucky, um, none of their songs on this album are as iconically tied to them as this song is tied to Stevie.
Yeah.
And so I think
And to
this
the pop culture in general.
and to the pop culture in
That's what I
general.
was trying to say so badly earlier. I didn't do
Yeah, it's like you say Fleetwood Mac and even though Dreams seems to be still having its TikTok moment these days,
that.
um, you say Fleetwood Mac and Stevie Nicks and Rhiannon is the first thing that comes up.
Right.
Always.
Right.
Always.
Right. Because, and partly is that Midnight Special live performance.
It is. It
And
is.
I think that song being on that first album and those performances being seen is part of what, she only got two songs to sing on the first album.
Right. Yes.
I can imagine there was, and I don't put this on Christine, of course, but there was sexism between the male members of the band, the producers, the executives, whatever. And then they saw Rhiannon. They're like, oh, she can
Right.
make money. They
Yeah.
still didn't give her the respect as a songwriter and a singer and all that.
Absolutely no. Not well, and also, I think it has
But the audiences were like, want more, take my money.
well, and
Sorry.
also I think because of the way that the songwriting credits, earn the songwriter's income from each album. And if
Yeah.
you look at like, you know, Stevie actually had three songwriting credits. Lindsay had two or three. Christine
Right.
had three. I think they were trying to split the songwriting credits evenly in
Okay.
order for everybody to
Yeah,
earn.
and there was one that I don't remember the names, but none of them were one of Christine's songs. Was Warm Letter? Is that it?
Yeah, Blue Letter
Blue
and yeah,
Letter. No,
that
the
was
other one.
Lindsay's yeah
Yeah,
song.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I think that they were just trying to be fair in terms of songwriting income.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
because
Over My Head was the first single, and it was first.
yes,
This was the second one.
yeah,
The first one was like position 20, and this was position 11. But it stayed on the charts much longer than
it
either
did.
of Christine's hits. So I love you, Christine. But that's why the executives were like, wait a minute.
Right. Well, and also, in that first tour at the very beginning, Christine stayed behind her keyboards and did not want to front the band. And Stevie did and did it well and all of a sudden became the focal point
But she,
of the band.
I don't know, I always saw Stevie as not fronting the band. Like she purposely didn't stand center. She was,
Right.
she was out there with Lindsay, but she wasn't trying to take the focus. I
Oh,
think she went out of her way. This is a Christine song. I'm gonna shrink myself, and yeah.
oh. Well, I don't think that she shrunk herself. And
Well,
I
I'm
don't think
not
that
going to take
she,
her spotlight.
right. And um, I don't think that she was like, oh, well, if nobody else is going to do this, I'm going to stand up front. And I don't think that
Yeah,
any of that, but
yeah.
she was naturally like the audiences were drawn to her.
That's agree with that 100%. Yeah, but I don't
But
think she was
yes,
aiming for that as much.
no.
And I think she respected and deferred even to Bucky. This is Bucky's
Hmm.
song. I'm just
Yep.
gonna. I'm not gonna do a thoroughly modern Millie kind of waving my hands in a
Right.
circle to draw
Yes.
attention. I'm gonna hit my
No. And in
tambourine and
fact,
then I'm gonna sing my backup. Yeah,
yeah. And in fact, she even wore jeans on a, on this first tour. She didn't wear her like chiffony stuff. But more than any other album, even Rumors, I think this is such a band album. It is such a group effort.
yeah,
Uh, and they all, I think they all worked to share the spotlight at this point.
yeah.
Um,
And I think it must. Again, she'll have to tell people. And I don't know if you've heard stuff like this. It must have been hard for Stevie seeing I only get two songs. I know what they think of me, but I'm still going to contribute to this band and it matters to me. I'm going to give Bucky one of my best songs and let him sing it.
well, interestingly, I was going to hit Crystal at the end, but
Yeah.
let's go ahead
Okay.
and hit it. So,
Let's go to
yes,
Crystal.
let's go to Crystal. Um, because Lindsay sings it, Bucky sings it. Bucky sang it on the Buckingham Nicks album as well. It was allegedly John McVie that suggested they re-record it for this album. And allegedly, Stevie wrote it with Lindsay's voice in mind. She wrote it for him to sing. Uh, and I think it's such a beautiful song,
It
lyrically,
is. And he
and the,
sang it song well.
he
It was
did.
beautiful.
And it's a really good throwback to how well the two of them do harmony.
Yeah.
Like
Well, I'm sorry. That's her. She
it
can
is.
harmonize with anything. Well, her
Yes,
voice
she
is
can.
different, mature now. But in her earlier days, anything, you
Yeah.
know,
And I
I give her
love
a
the
lot
way
of
that
credit
she,
for the harmonies on every single song where you're like, oh my God, that's
yeah.
beautiful. Davey's somewhere going, you're welcome.
Hmm. I love her harmony voice. I love to sing her harmony parts when I'm singing along. Uh, I just and actually credit where credit is due. I think that the guitar work for Crystal is also very beautiful because it really conjures up that water imagery that the lyrics
Yeah.
uh, communicate as well. Um, there
You
is, I
can't
mean,
deny that Bucky is a master guitarist. He's just
yes,
also an idiot. Oops,
yes,
I'm sorry.
but it's a good song. All right. So then here's the other iconic that I've played this song in every concert since I first started touring. Really, Stevie?
And that doesn't make sense because it wasn't a big deal to people in 75. Now, if you own the album, you like me and Randy did, I mean, you listened to it,
Yeah.
you wore those grooves out, but it never got released. It wasn't played on the radio. So I don't know, Randy, are you saying it wasn't on the set list back then?
It was on the set list back then, but it
Okay.
dropped out of the set list several
Because
times. And it was
it
not
was
till
there in 1975, 77 because they had like two songs each. Yeah.
right, exactly.
Right,
They
right.
had it was back then it was filler. It was like, oh, we got to put a song in here. Let's put in
Yeah,
Landslide.
right.
Nobody knew
Except for us.
except
Yeah.
for us how iconic this song would be. And again, when I was listening to it now, it I love the production because if you if you're just casually listening to it, it sounds like it's just Stevie and a guitar, right?
Yeah.
And which is how it should sound. And it's actually Stevie and three acoustic guitars, and then the guitar solo is an electric guitar. I mean, it is just Stevie and guitar work, but it's
Okay.
many, many guitar parts
Yeah.
laid in there.
Wow.
And then, but her voice is front and center for the
Yeah.
whole thing. And it's so fragile. I mean,
Yeah.
her voice is just so fragile and hurt and yet strong underneath it.
Right. I always process that as, she was really wanting to give up, but she never would.
Mm-mm.
And,
Um,
but you could hear that there was a point, there was a low for her, and she was uh,
yeah,
able to
yeah.
express it with just the sound of her voice.
She has told the story of Landslide like for decades about how she wrote it when she thought she was going to have to just give up music and go
Right.
back to school and she was in Aspen, Colorado, and she was looking out over the snow-covered hills and she wrote this thinking this may be the last thing that I ever write. And it's a great story, but if it wasn't until she filmed the 24 karat gold tour and did this like 10-minute explanation of Landslide that
Okay.
she really added all these details and color and all of this stuff. She was in Aspen because Lindsay was out on tour with Don Everly of the Everly Brothers, so she was there by herself, and she didn't know if if he was even going to come back, and what if he got successful and she didn't, and then she went back to school, all of this stuff. And so I encourage you to check it out, and if I remember to do it, I'll put the link up on YouTube if it's up there. Uh, but it really is, this is the song that I think I am going to get tired of in concert. Like, could you please take Landslide out and put Mabel Normand in?
I
And,
yeah.
but then
The
you're,
only other comments I have, it's a beautiful song.
yeah,
As a poem on just on paper, and you're reading it without the guitars and or singing. It's just lovely.
Mhm.
It's a
Yeah,
lovely piece of writing. And then, like you said, her voice is just astonishing. The arrangement's great. It wasn't a single. It's so perplexing,
yeah,
And so I think it wasn't. The dance was 97.
yep,
I
97.
think the Smashing Pumpkins did it a few years before that, and then the Chips
Yeah,
probably did it 5 years later. So
right.
kind of kept. It wasn't until the dance that it became, well.
Really
And
popular.
now,
Yeah,
just like with Rhiannon, you say landslide, and it's something. It's
right.
Stevie Nicks,
Oh,
Fleetwood
Fleetwood
Mac.
Mac. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Everyone remembers that video of her staring him down. Oh,
Yes.
actually, I'm sorry, that's the other one, Silver Springs, but there's a little staring in this. But yeah, so I think it surpassed all of the songs on that first album at this point in terms of its recognition, its cultural importance, and all that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I always say that the dance version is still my favorite live version of the song.
I'm sorry,
Not
I know what you meant, but for a nanosecond, I was like, there's a disco version of Landslide? And I
there,
was like,
I actually do have some remixes of Landslide. They were put out. They're not, I wouldn't call them disco, and
yeah,
but there are some remixes of it. Um, I think that the way that she delivers her vocal and the way that Lindsay plays his guitar is just
yeah,
beautiful. And I do have to say, it's never as good when she does it solo as it is when she does it with Lindsey Buckingham.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true.
um,
The other thing of cultural, just to underscore the cultural importance, is I wanted to look it up, but I didn't have a chance. I know that I have seen that song in 5 movies and 10
oh
TV.
yeah, oh yeah,
The
it's
one that sticks
everywhere.
in my mind the most, and I can't remember the context, was a very sad episode of South Park. Do you remember that?
Yes, yes, I
Yeah,
do. And it was when Stan, I think Stan's
I
parents
think
were getting
Stan.
divorced.
Yeah, yeah. And he's
Yeah,
coming to
yeah,
terms with walking the streets at night by himself with that song playing.
right.
And
Yeah,
it's used in so many ways. I know it was one of those NCIS kind of shows. I once happened to
sure.
turn on the television, and that's how they opened the show, was showing the story of someone being murdered to Landslide.
Right. Well, I've been afraid of changing. Yeah.
Go
Um,
Stevie Nicks. I
you know,
always believed in Landslide and
yeah,
Silver Springs.
yes. We are not the Johnny come lately, like, oh, this is trendy.
Yeah,
Uh, cranberry juice dreams. Um, but yeah, it's just do you remember so in in 91 when you saw her on the Time Space tour and you got to meet her,
yes.
uh, she had Landslide in the set list and actually introduced it as I haven't performed this song since 1982.
Oh wow.
So for 10 years, it was not in the set list. I don't
So she
care.
did it. She did it for me. That's what you're
She
saying.
did. Absolutely. She knew you were in the
She
audience.
knew I was in the arena.
That's right. And that she was going to see you later and you were going to say,
I'll never forget you, Stevie.
I'll never forget you either.
That's what she said as she sat down in the limo and before the door closed, and I fell to my knees on the concrete. All
Ah,
through. Yeah.
so those are Stevie's contributions. So I just wanted to ask you if there's anything from the other tracks on the album that stand out to you that you wanted to
Well,
mention.
Christine McVie is, such an underrated songwriter,
Yeah,
musician, vocalist. So, um, I think Over My Head is my favorite of the
really.
non-Stevie songs. Yeah,
Okay.
I enjoy that.
I
And
like, no, go
there,
ahead.
what is that first song on the album? Is that the Lindsay track?
Yeah, Monday morning.
Monday morning. It's all right. It's okay. I
Well, as an
said
album,
begrudgingly.
as a complete album, I love to listen to this. It's a fun album to listen to from beginning
Yeah,
to end. It's got high energy, it's got intense, it's got pretty ballads, it's got I mean, it's the whole package. No wonder people, stood up and took notice.
great.
I like Say You Love Me, and I like it
That's
specifically because of Stevie's harmonies. I mean,
that's a good one.
I mean, I like these are the harmonies I love to sing, and if there's a standout track of Christine's, it would be that. Now, Over My Head, I like too, but I actually like the live versions better because Stevie's harmonies are
Okay.
better in it. I like Monday Morning because of Stevie's harmonies. I like Blue Letter because of Stevie's harmonies. You're seeing a
Crystal, right.
pattern here. Crystal because of Stevie's harmonies. Um, I actually, when I was listening to this on vinyl, I got to Landslide and then I had to stop and get ready to record. And so I was just I put my earbuds in and was just listening to it as I was getting ready. Um, and honestly, my first thought was I was going to say they could have just wrapped up the album after Landslide because I don't care about the rest of it. But um, just for quirky fun and made me think of our apartment on Bryant Park that we don't have yet because we need a sugar daddy. And then Christine has the sugar daddy song, you know.
Ah,
And
yeah.
so I thought that was funny.
And just one more thing about the Christine song, "The Warm Ways," I think was one of
Oh,
hers.
yeah.
I don't really, it's okay. It's not bad. I don't care for it. And I felt like it was a vestige of the blues part of the blues
Yeah.
history of the band.
I
Didn't
don't
work for me. Some people
I
probably
don't
loved it to pieces.
I don't consciously say seek it out, but when I'm listening to this album from beginning to end, it's nice. I mean, it's a pretty song.
It is. It sounds sonically beautiful, but it's not my cup of tea.
Yeah. I do like, and I thought it was only on the live versions, but at the very end of I'm So Afraid, Stevie comes in with some really high harmonies, very far back
Oh,
in the mix. And I love it when you hear Stevie way in the background and you're straining to hear her and she's
yeah.
singing
You
really
have it
high,
turned up
beautiful
to
notes.
11 and you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
why did they downplay that?
Yeah. But it's cool to kind of pull it out. Oh, come on.
It is cool. It's very cool.
It is. It is. But I mean, that's the album. I don't have anything else. It's a solid album
It
and
is. It is.
it's a great way. I mean, you could not have picked a better way to introduce Stevie Nicks to the world than this.
Then Rhiannon, and yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then she planted that time capsule for later of Landslide,
Yes. Yes.
you know.
Yeah, it was definitely she was 27, by the way. Let's just stop and take a minute to realize that at 27 she wrote and performed songs that were going to be iconic. You know, that were going to change the way that people
And honestly, like, I don't want to fanboy too much. There's no one like her,
no.
right?
No.
There are plenty of people who are like, oh, I'm like her. No, you're not.
No. No,
It
you're
was
not.
something that was needed, especially that time frame,
Hmm.
after like the 60s and women's empowerment. And it was something, a symbol, a person, representing a representation of culture that what didn't exist. And there still isn't another one, you know,
No.
you know,
No. And you know, you actually had some other bands that kind of um used mysticism in their music in the 70s. I'm thinking
yeah,
like Led Zeppelin and The Who and so you know some of
yeah,
that stuff late 60s early 70s, but nobody is identified with it more than she is. And I mean, for better or worse, that's a powerful thing to have
agree,
debuted with something that stays with you your entire career.
agree.
You know, so
All right. So one thing thank you everyone for listening or watching
hmm
and like, share, harass your neighbors,
right.
for us, we love that. But in our comments, tell us who is the one, if you're a big Stevie fan, who is the person that people hear you're a Stevie Nicks fan and go, you should listen to X. They're
Right.
just like her. Tell us in the comments.
Yes.
And then we
Yes.
can reply and tell you some of the ones we've heard.
Yeah, absolutely. We love to hear from our listener. Um, all right. Well,
Viewers,
okay.
viewers,
Until next time.
we shall see you all on the other side of the mirror.
Well, all right, said Alice.